Hi, everyone. Welcome to AIR Course Introduction. Um, this is the first time I've ever lectured over Zoom or online like this, so we'll just hope for the best. And if I have any weird glitches or anything, then please just bear with me. First and foremost, you have to get my course notes from eCampus. On eCampus, I give you my actual course notes that I use personally. And the idea is that as I am lecturing, you just follow right along in those course notes, and it will be so much easier. It'll really help you with your organization. You'll see where I am. You'll see where I'm going. I mean, my lecture may seem confused or scattered or whatever if you don't have those notes, because I'm assuming that you have those notes in front of you. So whatever you do, if you haven't got them already, pause this video, go get my micro lecture notes, because we're obviously starting out in micro. Get the micro lecture notes and have them with you on another screen or print it out or whatever, so you can walk through right with me. So all we're doing right now in this lecture is just talking about an introduction into economics. Some of you have had economics already, some of you haven't. For those of you who have had economics, maybe it was a while ago and you've kind of forgotten about what economics is about. So we'll just talk about it from a real big picture perspective for just 10 or 15 minutes before we get into the real meat and potatoes of the course. Just to step back just for a second, remember, remember economics is a science. This is a science course. And remember what science is. With science, we're trying to, understand the phenomena that we see around us. We're naturally inquisitive. We want to understand the world, so we observe the world and we develop hypotheses to try to explain what we see in the world around us. And then we test those hypotheses against empirical evidence. When we get empirical results back, we go back and revise the hypotheses in light of that evidence. Then we test again the new hypothesis, and it's this iterative process where we go on forever. In the natural sciences, of course, they're observing natural phenomena. In this course, in economics, it's a social science. So instead, we're observing social phenomena, but it's still the exact same idea in terms of the scientific method. Economics is the specific branch of science, of social science, where we attempt to understand how humans behave in the face of scarcity. Economics really is this discipline of social science where we understand how people make choices in the face of scarcity. The basic economic paradigm is we have unlimited wants. We want to have just tons of stuff. We want to have plenty of leisure time. We want to have perfectly clean water. We want to have perfectly clean air. We want to have great houses and great public schools and great infrastructure and great leisure activities, great golf courses, whatever. We want to have all these things, but we only have so many resources to use to produce those things that we want. We only have so much land to begin with. We only have so much labor. We only have so many people to work. We only have so much capital, so much machinery and equipment to use to work with. And importantly as well, we only have so much time. So with unlimited resources, with unlimited wants, but finite resources, we have to make choices. We have to understand what wants will we fulfill and what wants will be left unfulfilled. Understanding those decisions, from a societal perspective, that's what economics is. Economics is divided into two halves. First is microeconomics. With microeconomics, we simply try to understand those types of decision-making activities at the individual level. We're looking at individual people, individual consumers, or individual businesses, or even individual industries. But we're understanding resource allocation at an individual level in some way. As you see in my notes, I have some examples of micro-oriented questions, things like, what will happen in the labor market if the minimum wage is increased? That's one market, that's the labor market. How much should you study for this class? That's a question of you individually allocating your resources across different areas where you need to focus. Why did crime fall in the 1990s? How should government regulate the electric company? How does the tax system affect housing decisions? How does the tax system affect small business activity? How should state spending on education be reformed? These are all micro-oriented questions because they focus on a particular part of the economy in some way. The other half of economics is macro, where we understand these decisions regarding resource allocation at the aggregate level, where we're looking at how all the businesses, all the individuals, all the consumers achieve outcomes as a whole. Macro-oriented questions, things like why is the economy growing at the present rate? Or of course, declining in the case of our economy right now with this coronavirus crisis. But anyway, why is the economy growing or declining at the present rate? That's a macro-oriented question. It deals with the entire economy. Why are so many people unemployed? That's a macro-oriented question. Why are prices rising at the present rate? That deals with the overall level of prices in the entire economy. It's a macro-oriented questions. Why are some countries rich while some countries are poor? That's a macro-oriented question because it deals with entire countries and in very broad economic outcome measures. How can government affect economic growth in the long run? How can government stabilize the path of economic activity in the short run? How should monetary policy be conducted to promote maximum economic prosperity? Those are macro-oriented questions. Economics is fundamentally the same. The methods, the idea, the underlying scientific philosophy is the same. It's just macro and micro is based on the types of questions that are being asked in a particular case. This course is, of course, going to focus on micro and macro. It's probably more common to have individual courses, one focusing on micro, one focusing on macro, but this course is a combined micro-macro. So in this course, what we're going to do is, fundamentally, the way I want you to think about it as we go through these 4 weeks, what we're going to do is we're going to, try to understand these questions of resource allocation better at both an individual and an aggregate level, both a micro and a macro level. And so what we're going to do, we're going to observe economic behavior. We'll look at articles like stuff in the Wall Street Journal where we kind of see what people are doing with regards to resource allocation. And then we'll try to understand what's driving those decisions. And so most importantly, we will develop models. Right? Economic models are crucial to economics. That's what economics is. Economics is nothing without models. Models are basically graphical, mathematical representations of the social phenomena that we observe. Models are much simpler than what we see in the real world. It would be impossible to capture all the complexity in the real world into an analytical framework that we can work with and we can understand. So models are necessarily, far more simplistic than the real world, but a good model captures the essence of what's going on in the real world in a framework that we can understand and that we can use and that we can apply and that we can use to communicate with. So models can be very, very powerful if they're good and if you understand them well. But in this class, we'll observe social phenomena, try to understand what people are doing with these questions of resource allocation. Then we'll develop models, mathematical, graphical, analytical systems to understand that resource allocation. And hopefully by the time the course is over with in 4 weeks, hopefully we'll have a system kind of up our sleeve or wherever that we can use to, throughout our life. We want a system that we can use to kind of just look around at what's happening in the economy and take a model that we've developed in this class and apply it to a particular situation to be able to understand it more fully. That's what economics is about. Anyway, in my notes, if you look at the next heading where I am, what is the purpose of this course? I'm kind of getting to that already. The purpose of this course is to develop analytical tools that allow us to better understand, how and why society allocates its scarce resources the way that it does. We want to develop a better understanding as to what's going on, what's happening, what's driving these questions of resource allocation. And then ultimately, we want to develop, an understanding that allows us to develop better systems of resource allocation. We want to achieve better systems through this understanding that we develop. I mean, economics fundamentally is about things like helping to alleviate poverty, understanding how to best preserve our physical environment while making use of its resources, designing better government spending, better government tax systems, designing a better healthcare system. Those are just a few examples of what economics is about. It's about trying to make better use of the scarce resources that we have. Some people talk about stuff like, economics is about making money. Maybe you'll hear a student in another discipline say, oh, you're wanting to major in economics because you want to graduate and make lots of money because the average salary in economics is higher than the average salary in art history or something like that. Yeah, that's true. But economics fundamentally is about making better use of the scarce resources that we have in our world and ultimately designing systems that allow people to live better lives and to make those people better off. I mean, the reason if you go to somewhere in Africa where there's a lot of poverty, for example, like Zimbabwe, or anywhere where there's any one of the poorest countries in the world, it's not as though we just simply don't have the resources in the world to make those people's lives better off. That's not the case. I mean, we have the resources, we have the means to make those people's lives better off. The reason these poor countries are poor is because their economic systems are messed up. There's a variety of causes for that. There's a long history for that, but their economic systems are messed up. So if we can implement better economic systems, it can definitely make a difference for their lives. And my last little topic of discussion in this introduction is, why are we taking an economics course? I mean, you folks are in the MBA program, kind of the little, I don't even know what you call it, but this course number is BADM 504, Business Administration. I mean, why is economics in part of business administration? The point is, economics isn't business. Economics is not a business class. Here, I'm going to just scribble out a little diagram for you. Sorry. I'm going to screen share and scribble out a little diagram for you to kind of show you what economics is. This is the way I visualize it. Just think about, step away with me for just a second and think about the natural sciences. In the natural sciences, we have biology, we have chemistry, we have physics, other stuff. We have these fundamental sciences. And then those fundamental sciences, they're devoted to just improving our understanding of the natural world in a fundamental way. But when we take the knowledge gained from those disciplines and apply that to practical use, we get the engineering disciplines. We get mechanical engineering. We get chemical engineering. We get, aerospace engineering. Just there's a whole bunch of different engineering disciplines, whatever. That's how it works. We have these fundamental science disciplines, and then we have associated applied sciences where we put those scientific principles to practical use. That's the relationship between the engineering disciplines and the fundamental sciences. In business, it's the same thing. The underlying scientific foundation of business studies is economics and psychology, at least fundamentally. There may be some more stuff you can fit in there, but that's the fundamental underlying foundation of business studies, economics and psychology. And when you take the principles gained from those disciplines and apply them to practical use, at least in some cases, I mean, I'm oversimplifying here, there's more to it than this, but when you apply those principles to practical use in business, you get disciplines like finance in some ways, disciplines like accounting, disciplines like management, disciplines like marketing, etc. There are others that fit in that mix as well. Economics is the underlying scientific foundation for business studies. That's why we are starting an MBA program with a basic economics course. Economics is not business. business disciplines are different, but we are in an economics course because economics, along with psychology, is the basic underlying foundation for business studies. I hope that makes sense. And there's just a whole bunch of other reasons to take economics, for example. I mean, you're never going to be a successful leader in business unless you understand the broader economic context around you in which your business is operating. You just have to have that underlying economic foundation to kind of understand and see the world around you if you're going to be a successful business leader. That shouldn't be too surprising. That makes sense. And economics is just fulfilling in so many ways. It really, I mean, if you're an inquisitive person, if you want to understand the world around you, economics can be a powerful tool to help you understand that world that you see around you. It can help do other things like make you a more informed participant in the democratic process. If you can understand these policy questions that are being debated in politics, you can participate more in a more informed way with an understanding of economics. And it just helps you enhance your critical thinking skills. There are so many benefits of understanding economics. So that's why we're in this course, even though we're in an MBA program and economics is not business. Hopefully that makes sense. Anyway, we will meet in person, of course, over Zoom to take questions over this material and to just discuss a few highlights of this material and reiterate a few key points. But otherwise, this is the introduction to the course. We'll come back next time and start with talking about supply and demand and our first real chapter in the material. Thanks so much.